In the glass and steel towers of downtown Atlanta, power rarely shows its face. It's in the way people move through Archer and Smith Holdings, measured, precise, always watching and always being watched. The air in the lobby is cold and still, carrying the faint scent of expensive coffee and fresh printouts. Each morning, executives drift in, badges flashing at security, shoes echoing over marble floors. In this world, everyone's in competition with everyone else, but the rules are invisible, especially to those not meant to win or meant to know how the game is played at all. Jasmine Miller is here before most. She crosses the lobby just past 7, her navy suit tailored sharp, heels clicking softly as she heads for the elevators. The city is waking up behind the tall windows, but inside the building, it already feels like noon. Jasmine keeps her head high, dark curls catching the light, her face unreadable, a blend of her mother's ice blue eyes and her father's confident jawline. She's learned not to show what she's feeling, not here, where every look might be read as a weakness, every word remembered and repeated. Her phone buzzes. It's a reminder for the quarterly strategy meeting, an event she's prepared for with more care than anyone could guess. For weeks, Jasmine has stayed late in the office, working under the hush of fluorescent lights, checking every figure, every projection, every angle. She's not just hoping to impress. She's fighting to be seen, and more importantly, she's learning what kind of company she will inherit. In the elevator, she stands beside a cluster of analysts and junior managers, all glancing at their phones. She recognizes Sean Jackson, tall, well-dressed, someone who knows how to move through these spaces without leaving a mark. He gives her a nod. There's respect in his eyes, the kind that comes from seeing each other struggle and survive in rooms built to keep people like them out. "Morning, Jasmine," Sean says quietly as the elevator glides upward. "Hey, Sean," she answers. They don't need small talk. They both know what today means. When the doors open on the 29th floor, Jasmine steps out into a world of glass walls and closed doors. The executive floor is a study in quiet intimidation, expensive art, private offices, sunlight streaming over the city like a silent dare. The conference room is already set, chairs arranged around a long table, carafes of coffee lined up like soldiers. She's always early, but not the first. Megan Riley, a junior executive with ambition written in every gesture, is already there. She's fussing with her laptop, eyes darting to the door every few seconds. Jasmine sets her things at a spot near the middle, not too close to the head of the table, not so far that she'll be forgotten. A few minutes later, others file in. Lauren Mitchell from HR, reserved and careful. Robert Allen, a board member whose gray hair and expensive cufflinks announce his authority without a word. Cameron Walker, the kind of manager who always seems to be watching for the next shift in the wind. Bradley Cooper arrives last, tall, crisp suit, smile practiced. His eyes sweep the room, pausing on Jasmine with a look that's polite but empty. David Carter, the CEO, enters with the weight of the company behind him. He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't have to. "Let's get started," he says, glancing at his watch. "Big week. Let's hear what we've got." Bradley starts the meeting, launching into numbers, market trends, and risk assessments. He stands at the end of the table, voice smooth, never uncertain. The others listen, nod, and ask questions meant to show they're paying attention. Jasmine listens too, taking notes, but she already knows what's coming. More of the same, more caution disguised as strategy. When Bradley finishes, he sits, folding his hands. "Megan, anything to add?" Megan looks up quickly. "Just that the projections are solid. If we stick to the plan, we should meet our targets." David nods. "Good. Jasmine, you had something?" She doesn't hesitate. She stands, clicks her laptop, and the screen at the end of the room flickers to life. Charts, graphs, and growth projections, her work fill the space in bright color. "I've identified an opportunity in the mid-market sector," Jasmine begins, her voice steady. "There's room for expansion, and if we move quickly, we can capture significant market share before the competition does." She lays out the data point by point. Her hands move with purpose, flipping between slides. The numbers are clear. A bold investment now could double the company's revenue in 2 years. She cites sources, answers questions before they're asked, and builds her case from the ground up. No detail is left unaddressed. For a moment the room is silent. Then Bradley leans back, arms folded. "It's ambitious," he says, the word heavy with skepticism. "But I'm not sure it's realistic. We don't have a precedent for something like this. These numbers, are you sure about them?" Jasmine meets his gaze. "Yes, I've double-checked everything. I can walk you through the methodology if you want." Bradley glances at David, a silent appeal to authority. "I just think we need to be cautious. We've got a good thing going. No need to take unnecessary risks." Megan chimes in, eager to back him up. "It's a big leap, Jasmine. Maybe we wait until next quarter." Lauren from HR shifts in her chair, uncomfortable. Jasmine stands her ground. "If we wait, we'll lose the advantage. I'm happy to provide all the details for anyone who wants a deeper dive." Bradley waves her off. "We've heard enough for now. Let's table it." "Thanks, Jasmine." The conversation moves on, her proposal fading into the background like it was never there. Jasmine sits, hands folded in her lap, eyes steady. She's learned not to show disappointment. In this place, disappointment is a luxury, and for her, there's much more at stake than just this meeting. For Jasmine, every no is a lesson in what she'll need to change one day. The meeting winds down with reports, forecasts, and a few tired jokes. When it ends, the executives file out quickly, eager to get back to their offices and their routines. Sean lingers near the door, giving Jasmine a look that says more than words could. Mary Lewis catches up to Jasmine in the hall. Mary is shorter, always moving fast, her energy a sharp contrast to the slow confidence of the upper floors. "You did great," Mary says softly. "They're just scared of change. Or maybe scared of you." Jasmine gives a tired smile. "It's always maybe next time. You'd think they'd run out of ways to say no." Mary leans closer. "One day they'll wish they'd listened. Just keep going." They walk together through the maze of glass and carpet, passing clusters of executives in quiet conversation. Jasmine glances back at the conference room, now empty. She knows the real discussions are just beginning, behind doors she's not invited to. But she also knows the doors won't be closed forever. Back at her desk, Jasmine pulls up her proposal, reviews every line. She forwards it to herself, CCs Sean and Mary. For a long moment, she sits in silence, watching the city outside, the world she's trying to change, one ignored idea at a time. Elsewhere, Bradley is in his office talking with Megan and Lauren. His voice is low, confident. "She's got potential," he says, "but she doesn't get the bigger picture. This isn't about numbers, it's about timing, about understanding the market." Megan nods. "She just needs more experience." Lauren keeps her thoughts to herself. She's seen this pattern before. Bradley laughs. "We can't risk the company on someone who's still learning the ropes." He glances at the window, the city stretching away beneath him. To him, it's just another day, another decision. But Jasmine's idea lingers, even if he won't admit it. That evening, as most of the staff head out, Jasmine stays behind. The office is quiet, the only sound the soft buzz of the lights. She checks her email one more time. Nothing from the board, nothing from David. She packs up, pulls on her coat, and heads down to the lobby. On the street, the air is cooler, tinged with exhaust and the distant sound of sirens. Jasmine stands for a moment, letting the city wash over her. She's tired, but not defeated. She knows the rules. She knows how easily the people in charge can forget what they owe, and who built what they have. Later that night, in a bar a few blocks away, Bradley holds court over drinks with Cameron and Megan. He tells the story of the meeting, exaggerating for laughs. You should have seen her, so sure of herself, pitching like she was already in charge. He raises his glass, and the others join in. It's good to have ambition, but you gotta know your place. Megan laughs, but there's a hesitation in it. Cameron just nods. None of them notice the older man at the end of the bar, quietly nursing a drink, listening, a man with the same blue eyes as Jasmine's mother. Back at her apartment, Jasmine reviews her notes. She sends a copy of her proposal to her personal email just in case. She calls Mary and they talk quietly about the day, about small victories, about not giving in, about what comes next. "I'm proud of you," Mary says finally, "no matter what happens." "Thanks, Mary. I just wish it didn't always have to be this hard." Mary's voice softens. "They can't ignore you forever. Something's got to give." Jasmine hangs up, sits in silence. Her window looks out over the city, lights flickering against the dark. She thinks about her parents, about growing up knowing she'd always have to work twice as hard, and about the grandfather whose company is still in her name, even if nobody in the office knows it. She thinks about every meeting, every moment she's been talked over, every time her ideas were dismissed by someone who thought they already had all the answers. She opens her laptop, pulls up a blank document and starts making notes, new strategies, new angles, ways to move around the walls instead of just banging against them. She doesn't know what tomorrow will bring, but she's not waiting for permission anymore. By the time Wednesday rolled around, the city was already humming with a steady drumbeat of deals and deadlines. The sun rose over Atlanta in a pale haze, burning off the memory of rain from the night before. Archer and Smith Holdings was alive with movement. Phones rang, emails pinged, and footsteps echoed along the marble-floored corridors. Jasmine Miller sat at her desk, trying not to think about the hollow taste of disappointment that still lingered from Monday's meeting. The night before, she had barely slept. She replayed every moment in the conference room. The way Bradley Cooper had waved her off, the quick nods from Megan Riley, the way Lauren Mitchell wouldn't meet her eyes, the practiced indifference in David Carter's voice. There was a specific kind of silence in those rooms, she'd realized, a silence that always seemed to settle over her words, muting them before they reached anyone important. But Jasmine's resolve was not the kind that faded overnight. This morning she wore a deep emerald blouse under her jacket, a splash of color against the gray monotony of the office. It was a small act of rebellion, her way of refusing to blend in, even as the building seemed designed to erase anyone who didn't fit the mold. Her inbox was already filling up with requests by 8:30, project updates, client calls, budget questions. She handled them all with the practiced efficiency of someone who knows mistakes are not an option. Every email was a chess move, every reply a chance to remind the company she was still here, still fighting. In moments of quiet, she remembered her mother's steady advice: learn the people before you lead them, earn every inch. At 10, Sean Jackson stopped by her desk, his tie askew, coffee in hand. "You got a minute?" he asked quietly. Jasmine nodded, and they slipped into a small conference room at the end of the hall. Sean closed the door behind them, his face serious. "I heard Bradley's pitching your numbers to Robert Allen and David this morning," he said. Jasmine looked up sharply. "He's what?" "He's calling it market intelligence. Says it came out of the last strategy review. He's not using your name." Jasmine felt a slow heat rise in her chest, a sensation so familiar it almost didn't register. "Of course he isn't." Sean watched her, worry in his eyes. "This place, you know how it is. They don't always see you unless you make them. You want me to say something?" She shook her head. "No. If he thinks he can pass off my work, let him try. The board's smarter than that. They've seen me in action before." Jasmine thought, not for the first time, about the family portraits in the founder's suite, the only room she'd never entered in her own name. Not yet. Sean smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, well, just watch your back." He left her alone, the quiet settling in after he closed the door. Jasmine's hands tightened around her notebook. She was tired of being the invisible engine behind someone else's success. This time, she wouldn't let it stand. Back at her desk, she crafted a careful email to David Carter, CCing Robert Allen and Lauren Mitchell. The subject line was precise: follow-up, mid-market expansion opportunity, supporting data and analysis. She attached her slides, her notes, and her calculations. The body of the email was polite but unmistakably assertive. She wanted a written record, evidence that the work was hers. The reply came 2 hours later, just as she was finishing a call with a supplier. David's answer was brief. "Thanks for sharing, Jasmine. We'll be in touch." She stared at the screen for a long moment, her reflection in the black glass of her monitor. No apology, no acknowledgement, just another polite brush-off. Around noon, the office started to thin out for lunch. Jasmine wasn't hungry, but she needed air. She walked past the rows of cubicles, past the big windows that looked out over the city. Outside, Atlanta was alive with horns and sirens and the murmur of a million private dramas. Jasmine stopped at a quiet corner by the vending machines, letting her mind drift. Mary Lewis found her there, 2 coffees in hand. "I figured you could use this," Mary said, pressing 1 cup into Jasmine's hand. "Thanks." Jasmine took a sip, grateful for the warmth. Mary glanced around, lowering her voice. "I heard about Bradley. You okay?" Jasmine shrugged. "Same story, different day." Mary leaned in. "You know, you don't have to take it. There are other companies, other teams. You could run your own place if you wanted." Jasmine smiled wryly. "Maybe, but I don't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me walk away. Not yet." They stood in silence, the hum of the vending machine filling the space between them. Jasmine thought of her father's voice on the phone, always pushing her to stay patient, learn every layer. She'd promised both her parents she'd finish what she started. She was here for a reason. Back in the executive suite, Bradley was in the boardroom with Robert Allen and David Carter. The city spread out behind the windows, sunlight catching on the steel and glass. Bradley stood at the end of the table, projecting confidence. "If we're looking for aggressive growth, I think we've got a real opportunity here," he said, outlining Jasmine's data in broad strokes. Mid-market expansion, calculated risk, significant upside. Robert listened, tapping his pen on the table. David nodded, non-committal. "Interesting," Robert said at last. "Who pulled these numbers?" Bradley hesitated, just a fraction. "My team's been working through the latest reports. It's a collaborative effort." David looked out the window, unconvinced. "Let's make sure we know what we're getting into. I want to see the backup before we move forward." Bradley nodded, the smile never leaving his face. But a flicker of unease crept in. He'd spent years playing this game, taking credit for ideas, shifting blame when it suited him. But Jasmine's proposal was tight, hard to fudge, harder to steal. Meanwhile, in the common area, Lauren Mitchell was discussing the latest rumors with Megan Riley. "I heard David's looking at restructuring," Lauren whispered. "He's meeting with board members every other day." Megan nodded, worry in her eyes. "You think our jobs are safe?" Lauren shrugged. "Depends on whose side you're on." The office felt different lately. The air was charged with tension. Even the weather seemed unsettled. Dark clouds gathering over the skyline as the afternoon dragged on. At 3, Jasmine's phone rang, an internal extension. David Carter's office. She took a steady breath and answered. "Jasmine Miller." "David here. Can you join us in the boardroom in 5? Her pulse quickened. "I'll be right there." She hung up, gathered her notebook and laptop, and made her way to the boardroom. The walk felt longer than usual. Heads turned as she passed. Conversations paused, then resumed in low voices. When she entered, David and Robert were seated at the far end, Bradley standing by the window. "Thanks for coming," David said, gesturing for her to take a seat. Jasmine sat, meeting their eyes with steady calm. "We've been reviewing your proposal," Robert began. "It's thorough, ambitious." Bradley cleared his throat. "We're concerned about the risks. It's a lot of capital to tie up in an untested market." Jasmine didn't flinch. "I understand the risk, but the data is strong and the market window won't stay open. If we wait, we'll lose to the competition." Robert studied her, a hint of curiosity in his expression. "You believe in this?" "Absolutely." David exchanged a look with Robert. "We're still considering our options, but we wanted to hear directly from you. What makes you so sure?" Jasmine took a deep breath. "Because I've spent months talking to potential clients. I know what they want. Our competitors aren't moving fast enough. If we get there first, we set the terms. If not, we're playing catch-up for years." The room was silent for a moment. "Thank you, Jasmine," David said at last. "We'll be in touch." As she left, Bradley shot her a look, cold, calculating, almost resentful. She felt his gaze on her all the way down the hall. Back at her desk, Jasmine let herself exhale. She knew this wasn't a win, not yet, but for the first time, they had listened, if only because she forced them to. She thought of her grandfather's old advice. "There's no shortcut to understanding people, Jasmine. If you want to lead, know every floor, every voice." By 5 o'clock, the sky was threatening rain. The office emptied in waves. Jasmine stayed behind, tidying her desk, sending a few last emails. She saw Bradley leave, coat over his arm, barely glancing her way. Megan followed, nervously glancing back at Jasmine. Sean dropped by with a quiet nod. "You good?" he asked, voice low. "I'm fine," Jasmine replied. "Better than yesterday." He grinned. "That's the spirit." She left after 6, stepping into the humid air. The city was restless, sirens, honking, distant thunder. Jasmine walked to the MARTA station, blending into the crowd, just another tired commuter in the city's bloodstream. At home, she microwaved leftovers, put her phone on silent, and let herself rest. She watched the rain streak down her window, lights of the city blurring behind it. She thought about her parents, about the sacrifices they made, about how she was living both their dreams, her father's insistence on education, her mother's belief in legacy. She fell asleep early, but her dreams were restless, filled with boardrooms and voices that wouldn't listen. The next morning, she was in early again. Mary found her by the coffee machine, pouring a cup. "Late night?" Mary asked. Jasmine shrugged. "Same as always." Mary handed her a small pastry. "Eat. You can't win if you're starving." Jasmine laughed, warmth spreading through her. "Thanks, Mary. I don't know what I'd do without you." Mary smiled. "Probably conquer the world, but let me know if you need backup." Jasmine took the pastry, her mood lifting. They walked together to their desks, the office filling around them. Mid-morning, Lauren sent an email. "Strategy review, Friday 9 a.m. All department leads required." The subject line carried a weight Jasmine couldn't quite place. By lunch, the office was buzzing with speculation. Bradley was locked in his office, talking on the phone in clipped, urgent tones. Megan hovered near the printers, making copies of something thick and confidential. Cameron Walker seemed to be everywhere at once, checking in on teams, taking notes. Jasmine ignored the rumors, burying herself in work, but she felt the eyes on her, felt the shift in the air. Something was coming. Late afternoon, David stopped by her desk. "Jasmine, do you have a minute?" She nodded, standing. He led her to his office, closing the door behind them. He sat behind his desk, fingers steepled. "I want you to know I appreciate your work," David began. "I've seen you take on more than your share, and your proposal, it's got merit. The board will discuss it on Friday." Jasmine waited. David looked tired, lines deepening around his eyes. "I won't lie. There are people who think you're pushing too hard, people who like things the way they are. But this company's changing, whether they like it or not." Jasmine kept her voice even. "I only want what's best for Archer and Smith." David nodded. "I know. Just be ready for anything at the meeting, and keep your head up. This place can chew people up, especially the ones who try to change it." She left his office with her mind racing. Friday. Everything would come down to that meeting. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Jasmine worked late, reviewing numbers, running scenarios, and preparing for every question she could imagine. Sean and Mary checked in on her, offering support, encouragement, and a few laughs to keep the nerves at bay. Bradley avoided her. She saw him huddled with Robert Allen more than once, voices low and urgent. Megan's glances grew more anxious. Thursday night, Jasmine lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every step of the week. She thought about leaving, about walking away from the fights, the disrespect, the endless grind. But she knew she couldn't. Not yet. She wanted the win too much. Friday morning dawned gray and uncertain. Jasmine dressed carefully, choosing a suit that made her feel powerful, her confidence like armor. She arrived early, taking a moment to steady herself in the quiet of her office. Her mother had always told her, When the moment comes, step into it without fear. That's how you honor your name. Today, Jasmine felt the weight of that advice more than ever. Mary found her there, pressing a small stone into Jasmine's palm. "For luck," she said, smiling. "You've already done the hard part." Jasmine closed her hand around the stone. "Thanks, Mary. I'll let you know how it goes." As 9 o'clock approached, the corridors filled with department heads, all moving toward the boardroom. Jasmine walked with them, her heart pounding but her face calm. She passed Bradley in the hallway, his eyes hard, jaw clenched. He didn't speak. Inside the boardroom, the air was thick with anticipation. David sat at the head of the table, Robert to his right, Bradley to his left. Lauren, Megan, Cameron, and half a dozen others filled out the table. Jasmine took her seat, feeling every eye on her. David opened the meeting with the usual pleasantries, but his tone was serious. "We've got important decisions to make today. Let's get to it." He turned to Jasmine. "Let's start with the mid-market proposal. Jasmine, walk us through your vision one more time." Jasmine took a breath and began, her voice clear and strong. She laid out the case again: growth, competition, risk, reward. She answered every question, challenged every doubt. Bradley tried to poke holes, but her data held. Robert asked tough questions, but Jasmine met him head-on. By the time she finished, the room was quiet. David looked around the table. "We'll vote after a short break." As people filed out, Bradley glared at Jasmine, frustration written all over his face. She ignored him, joining Mary and Sean in the hallway. "You killed it," Sean said, grinning. Mary squeezed her hand. "No matter what happens, you did everything right." Jasmine smiled, feeling something shift inside her. For the first time all week, she allowed herself to believe she might actually win. Inside the boardroom, the conversation was heated. Bradley pushed back hard, but Robert's voice was calm and insistent. "The numbers don't lie. She's right. We need to move." David nodded. "Let's bring her in for the decision." Jasmine returned to the room, every nerve buzzing. David smiled at her, the first genuine smile she'd seen all week. "Congratulations, Jasmine. The board has approved your proposal. You're leading the project." For a moment, Jasmine couldn't speak. Then she managed, "Thank you." Bradley's face was a mask, but Jasmine could see the storm behind his eyes. He stood, excused himself, and left the room without another word. As the meeting broke up, people congratulated Jasmine, some warmly, some with thin smiles. She didn't care. The win was hers. In the hall, Sean hugged her. Mary beamed. Jasmine felt the weight of years lift from her shoulders, but she knew, even as she celebrated, that the real test was just beginning. Success in this place was never simple, and some people like Bradley, didn't forget or forgive. As the day ended, Jasmine sat at her desk, looking out over the city. She allowed herself a moment to breathe, to savor the victory. But beneath the satisfaction, there was a new, deeper determination. She hadn't just won a project. She'd made them see her. And now, nothing would ever be the same. Rain fell in sheets across Atlanta that Monday morning, making the city's towers glisten with a cold, steely light. Inside Archer and Smith Holdings, umbrellas dripped in the marble entryway, and employees hustled through revolving doors, shaking off the wet and bracing for the week ahead. Despite the gloom outside, a crackle of energy charged the office. Word had spread. Jasmine Miller's proposal was not just approved, she was leading it. The company, known for playing it safe, was finally making a bold move, and the shift had everyone on edge. For Jasmine, the feeling was electric and exhausting. Since Friday's boardroom victory, she'd fielded congratulations, veiled and sincere. There were backslaps from department heads, polite emails from senior staff, nods from colleagues who'd barely noticed her before. Even people from other floors, a new project manager, a facilities coordinator, the woman who ran the copy center, stopped to say, "Heard the news. About time." Some offered genuine smiles, others, quick glances to see who else was watching. Mary Lewis brought her coffee that morning. Look at you, CEO in training, she teased, setting the mug down on Jasmine's desk. Jasmine laughed, but there was an edge to it, excitement mixed with wariness. More like the CEO's headache, she replied. The real work starts now. Jasmine didn't flinch. Let him slam as many doors as he wants. I'm not backing down. They shared a look. Years of friendship, silent understanding. Around them, the office buzzed. Emails poured in. Questions about the project, requests for data, calendar invites from managers who'd ignored her last week. Jasmine responded quickly, each reply measured and professional, her signature now carrying more weight than before. As she worked, she noticed the subtle shift in attitude, how people paused before speaking to her, how junior staff watched her for cues. By 9:30, Jasmine was deep into the numbers, sketching a timeline on her glass board when Sean Jackson popped his head in. Heard you're building your dream team. Save me a spot, Jasmine smiled. I'll need all the help I can get. Seriously, though, Sean said, shutting the door behind him. There's talk. Bradley's not just upset, he's scheming. Word is he's trying to get the board to slow things down. Says the company's moving too fast, that we're not prepared for the risk. Jasmine wiped the marker from her hand. Prepared? We've been treading water for years. The only risk is staying the same. Sean nodded, his face grim. Just watch your back, Jasmine. He's not the type to go down quietly. The two exchanged a long look. Neither needed to say what they were both thinking. In corporate America, winning the room was only half the battle. The real fights happened later, in hallways and emails, in the spaces between meetings where the old guard traded favors and built alliances. As Sean left, Jasmine's phone vibrated. A meeting request popped up. Project launch planning, 10 a.m. executive conference room. Sent by Bradley Cooper. The guest list was a who's who of senior staff: David Carter, Robert Allen, Lauren Mitchell, Megan Riley, Cameron Walker, and Jasmine herself. For a brief moment, she wondered if this was Bradley's way of calling a truce or setting a trap. She arrived early, her notes and slides neatly organized. The room filled up quickly. Bradley took the seat at the head of the table, with David and Robert flanking him. Jasmine claimed a seat to the side, refusing to shrink back but also not needing to posture. She was here for business. Bradley opened with a crisp, formal tone. Thanks for coming, everyone. We're here to discuss next steps on the mid-market expansion. Jasmine, since you'll be leading this initiative, why don't you walk us through your rollout plan? The words sounded fair, even generous. But his eyes were icy, his smile razor-thin. Jasmine began, outlining her timeline, resource needs, and projected milestones. She moved with confidence, anticipating questions, citing facts, and adjusting on the fly. The room listened, some with interest, some with skepticism. Bradley pounced on her third slide. These projections, 20% growth in Q3? That's aggressive. I'm not sure it's realistic, given our current resources. What's your contingency if things start to go sideways? Jasmine didn't hesitate. We've built in buffer zones, both in staffing and capital allocation. If the initial uptake is slower than forecast, we can adjust the scale without losing momentum. But if we're too cautious, we'll miss the market entirely. Jasmine replied, I'll work closely with your department, Lauren. We can identify new hires and build out a support network before launch. Jasmine was ready. We're not pulling resources. We're expanding. This isn't a zero-sum play. The long-term returns far outweigh the temporary reallocations. Bradley pressed harder, but with each challenge, Jasmine's answers held. The room's mood began to shift. Eyes moved from Bradley to Jasmine, following her words, weighing her authority. It was subtle, but Jasmine felt it. A transfer of power, almost imperceptible, but real. After an hour, David wrapped up. Good work, Jasmine. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks to review progress. Everyone clear on next steps? Heads nodded. The meeting broke up. Bradley lingered, pretending to shuffle papers as the others filed out. Jasmine waited. She knew he wanted a moment alone. He spoke first, voice cold and measured. Don't get comfortable. The board might have your back today, but things change. Fast. You're in my world now. Jasmine held his gaze unflinching. You mean the world where hard work gets ignored and good ideas get stolen? I know it well. I've lived here longer than you think. Bradley's jaw clenched, but Jasmine gathered her things and left, her spine straight and her stride confident. She stopped by Mary's desk on the way back. How'd it go? Mary asked, eyes searching Jasmine's face for clues. Better than he expected, Jasmine replied. Worse than he wanted, Mary grinned. That's the sweet spot. The next few days moved at a breakneck pace. Jasmine was everywhere, meeting with department heads, drafting budgets, mapping workflows, and recruiting volunteers for her project team. She noticed how quickly people responded to her now. Doors that had once been closed were opening. Voices that once ignored her now offered support. Even Megan Riley, who'd always followed Bradley's lead, started emailing Jasmine for advice. But the pushback wasn't over. Bradley made small, calculated moves, delaying approvals, raising extra questions in budget meetings, nitpicking over details he'd never cared about before. Once, Jasmine overheard him in the hallway with Cameron Walker, his voice low and conspiratorial. She's moving too fast, Bradley muttered. If this blows up, we're all going down with her. Cameron sounded nervous. She's got Robert on her side now, and David. Maybe it's best to back her play. For now. Bradley was silent, but Jasmine caught the look he shot her as she passed. A look that said the game wasn't over, not by a long shot. On Thursday, just before lunch, Jasmine was called into an unscheduled catch-up with David Carter. She found him at his desk, brow furrowed over spreadsheets. He looked up as she entered, waving her to a chair. Sit, Jasmine. Let's talk. She sat, notebook in hand, ready for anything. David steepled his fingers, thinking, You're making waves. That's a good thing, but it puts a target on your back. Bradley's not happy about how things went down. He's used to being the golden boy. Jasmine kept her tone neutral. I'm just doing my job. David smiled, a little weary smile. Your job is changing. People are noticing from the ground floor all the way up. Don't let the noise distract you. If you need support, you come to me. Jasmine nodded, a weight lifting off her shoulders. Thank you, I will. Before she left, David added, One more thing, there's a board dinner next week. I want you there. Don't be late. Jasmine walked out, feeling both energized and wary. Every victory here came with a new test, a new room to prove herself in. She shared the news with Mary over lunch, sitting outside on the concrete steps behind the building, their food in brown paper bags. You're going to a board dinner? Mary whispered, wide-eyed. Jasmine laughed, shaking her head. Just dinner, not a coronation. Mary smiled, nudging Jasmine's shoulder. Still, that's real power. You'll be at the table, not just serving it. They ate in companionable silence, watching traffic crawl by, the city alive around them. The rest of the week, Jasmine doubled down. She worked late, often the last to leave. Sean stopped by one night, catching her at her desk with spreadsheets spread everywhere. You ever go home? He asked, feigning exasperation. Jasmine grinned, rubbing her eyes. Not when there's this much to do. He grew serious, lowering his voice. You're doing it, Jasmine. You know that, right? She nodded, feeling it for the first time. Yeah, I think I am. When she finally headed out, the halls were quiet. She rode the elevator down alone, her reflection fractured in the mirrored walls. She thought about the project, the people relying on her, the ones hoping she'd fail. The responsibility felt heavy, but not crushing. For once, it felt earned. The next morning brought a new challenge. Bradley had called an emergency meeting. Urgent issues, the subject line read. The invite went to the project team and the executive leadership. Jasmine knew the play. Catch her off guard, undermine her in front of the group. She arrived prepared. The conference room was tense, the air charged. Bradley stood at the head of the table, pacing as people filed in. Thanks for coming, he began. There are some concerns about the budget projections for the mid-market launch. Some red flags in the numbers. Jasmine waited, letting him lay out his argument. He pointed to a few line items highlighting supposed discrepancies. She stood, pulling up her own files. Actually, those figures are based on the latest vendor quotes and client feedback. I have the emails here, if anyone wants to see the source. The room grew quiet as Jasmine clicked through, showing her work. For each question Bradley raised, she answered with data. Every concern she met with facts. The project team watched in silence, and by the end, Bradley's face was pale with frustration. Robert Allen spoke up. I think Jasmine's got this covered. Any other issues? No one spoke. The meeting adjourned, and as people left, several stopped to thank Jasmine quietly. Lauren Mitchell lingered. You know, I wasn't sure about all this at first, but you're making it work. Jasmine smiled, her gratitude genuine. Thanks, Lauren. I can't do it alone. Lauren nodded, looking relieved. If you need anything, HR, compliance, whatever, let me know. Jasmine's phone buzzed as she stepped into the hallway. It was a message from David. Nice work. See you at the dinner. By Friday, the office had changed again. People moved differently around Jasmine, some with admiration, some with envy. She was no longer invisible, no longer the easy one to ignore. For every door Bradley tried to close, another opened. Megan Riley, sensing the shift, now approached Jasmine with ideas and questions, asking for feedback on her own projects. On the other side, the resistance hardened. Bradley and his allies grew more insular, whispering behind closed doors, searching for cracks in Jasmine's plan. Rumors started to swirl about layoffs, about new investors, about shakeups at the top. Jasmine tuned them out, staying focused on the work. The day of the board dinner arrived. Jasmine chose her outfit carefully. A navy dress, simple jewelry, the kind of look that projected authority without pretense. Mary helped her zip up, fussing over details. You look like you belong there, she said, eyes shining. Jasmine hugged her. Thanks, Mary, I needed that. The dinner was held in a private room at one of Atlanta's most exclusive restaurants. Jasmine arrived early, greeted by a hostess who recognized her name. Inside, the board was already gathering. David, Robert, Cameron, and a few other directors. The room was quiet, voices low and polite. Bradley arrived late, his smile strained. David welcomed Jasmine, introducing her to a few directors she'd only met in passing. Robert Allen made a toast. To new beginnings, and to those bold enough to push us forward. The meal passed in a blur of conversation, business, city news, cautious laughter. Jasmine held her own, contributing insights, asking smart questions, and showing she belonged. She noticed how the board listened when she spoke, how even the older members seemed to lean in. Near the end of the evening, David pulled her aside. You're making an impression, Jasmine. Keep it up. She smiled, her confidence rising. Outside, the city was quiet, rain-slicked streets reflecting the lights. Jasmine rode home in a cab, the night's conversations replaying in her mind. She felt the balance shifting, not all at once, but enough to know her place in the company was no longer in question. The next week, the first milestone of the project arrived. On time, under budget. The company sent out an all-hands memo crediting Jasmine and her team. Employees from across departments stopped by her office to congratulate her. The new accounts were coming in. The plan was working. But Bradley wasn't finished. Late that week, Jasmine overheard him in the corridor, talking to a man in a tailored suit she didn't recognize. We can't let her get too comfortable, Bradley whispered, voice tight with frustration. Someone needs to remind her who's in charge. Jasmine didn't pause, didn't look back. She simply kept walking, her steps measured and steady. She'd learned that power is rarely about titles or office doors. It's about presence. It's about who people listen to and who they follow. And right now, the company was listening to her. As the sun set on another week, Jasmine sat at her desk, staring out at the city skyline. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, she knew she could win, not just for herself, but for everyone who'd ever been told their ideas didn't matter. There was a knock at her door. Mary peeked in, a smile on her face. Ready for the weekend? Mary asked. Jasmine nodded, closing her laptop. Ready for whatever comes next. Outside, Atlanta sparkled in the darkness. Every light in every window a reminder. Even the tallest towers can be shaken by one determined voice. A new month brought blue skies and a sense of urgency to Archer and Smith Holdings. With Jasmine's project rolling out ahead of schedule, the company's mood grew tense and competitive. Something was shifting and everyone could feel it, even those who didn't understand why. The energy on the executive floor was more charged than ever. Conference rooms filled with heated discussions, calendars overflowed with overlapping meetings. The once familiar hierarchies seemed to tremble as Jasmine's name started appearing in company-wide memos, her signature attached to directives that impacted not just her team but every department. One morning, Jasmine arrived to find her inbox packed with messages from unfamiliar names, colleagues from the finance group, IT, and even the legal department. They wanted input, sign-off, or her opinion on new strategies. She answered each message with clarity and authority. Every reply reinforced the shift already happening. Her calendar was relentless. Back-to-back meetings, lunches with team leads, video calls with out-of-state clients. Jasmine's days blurred together, a cascade of action items and decisions, but she thrived under pressure. For the first time since joining Archer and Smith, she felt not just visible but essential. Yet the winds of resistance never stopped blowing. Bradley Cooper doubled his efforts to regain control, holding private meetings with board members, sowing doubts about the speed of Jasmine's changes. In small groups, he warned of chaos, suggesting the company risked overextending itself and diluting the brand. He leaned heavily on history, reminding anyone who would listen that Archer and Smith had survived downturns because of careful leadership, not risk-taking. It wasn't lost on anyone that most of his criticism focused not on Jasmine's ideas, but on Jasmine herself. One afternoon, Lauren Mitchell from HR knocked softly on Jasmine's door. She looked tired, carrying a file folder and a heavy conscience. "Got a minute?" Lauren asked. Jasmine nodded, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Lauren sat, smoothing her skirt, eyes scanning the room before landing on Jasmine. "I'm not supposed to say this," she whispered, "but you should know. Bradley made a formal complaint. He says you're undermining team morale by forcing change too quickly." Jasmine listened without surprise. Did he give any examples? Nothing concrete, just a lot of opinion. Lauren glanced down, then met Jasmine's gaze. "HR isn't taking it seriously. We've had 3 times as many compliments as complaints about your leadership this quarter. But you should be prepared. He's trying to build a paper trail." Jasmine's voice was calm. "Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate the heads up." Lauren lingered, hesitation in her eyes. "For what it's worth, most of us are rooting for you. It's about time this place caught up to the present." After Lauren left, Jasmine allowed herself a moment to breathe. Bradley's strategy was old, almost tired. Undermine, isolate, wait for the pressure to break someone down. But Jasmine wasn't new to this. She'd spent her whole life learning how to weather storms built by other people. Still, the pressure was real. Rumors swirled about investor unrest, about board members taking sides, about mysterious meetings after hours. Jasmine began to notice changes in her own team. Nervous laughter in the break room, whispered conversations when she walked by. Even Mary seemed tense, working later than usual, glancing at her phone with worry. One evening, after most of the office had cleared out, Jasmine found Mary in a small meeting room, hunched over her laptop. "You should go home," Jasmine said gently. Mary looked up, shadows under her eyes. "Just finishing something for the launch. I heard there's talk of a board shakeup. Some folks are nervous." Jasmine leaned against the doorframe. People are always nervous when things change. Mary closed her laptop, her voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't just about the project, is it?" Jasmine shook her head. "No, it never was." Mary's voice caught. "They're lucky to have you, don't forget that." Later that night at home, Jasmine poured herself a glass of wine and sat on the balcony, city lights sparkling below. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through old emails. Her first job offer, welcome notes from HR, the faded memory of when she'd believed the only thing that mattered was hard work. She knew better now. Hard work alone would never be enough for people like her. Power, she'd learned, comes from knowing how to make hard work visible, how to force the world to notice. The next morning, Jasmine met with Sean Jackson and 2 department heads to finalize the next phase of the rollout. The meeting was productive, strategies mapped out, responsibilities delegated, goals defined. But as the group disbanded, Sean lingered. "You've seen the latest shareholder list?" he asked quietly. Jasmine shook her head. "I don't pay much attention to that stuff." Sean's voice was careful. "You might want to. Word is there's been movement. Old shares changing hands, big blocks transferring between holding companies." Jasmine regarded him with new interest. "You think there's something up?" He shrugged, glancing toward the window. "I think the board knows more than they're saying, and I think someone at the very top has more control than we all realized." She filed that away. Archer and Smith had always been private about its ownership, run like a family company even after 3 generations of change. Most people assumed the board held all the real power, but rumors about a mysterious investor, the so-called silent partner, had always lingered. Meanwhile, Bradley intensified his campaign. He began inviting small groups to strategy breakfasts, painting Jasmine's initiatives as reckless. He called old clients, warning them about possible disruptions. He made a point of checking in on Jasmine's team with thinly veiled criticism. But every time he tried to undermine her, the numbers told a different story. Sales were up, new business was flowing in, and Jasmine's teams reported higher morale than ever. Employees who had once kept their heads down now volunteered for new projects, eager to be part of the momentum. Despite the data, Bradley persisted. One Wednesday, he sent a long email to the board, questioning Jasmine's fitness for executive leadership and demanding an urgent review of all recent changes. The message was sharp, peppered with jargon, and CC'd to half the senior staff. It was the corporate equivalent of drawing a line in the sand. Jasmine received a copy. She read it twice, then forwarded it to David Carter with a simple note. "Let me know if you want to discuss." David called her an hour later. His voice was weary but steady. "Ignore him, Jasmine. The board's seen the numbers, and most of us know what this is really about." Jasmine let out a long breath. "It's not about the project, is it?" David's laugh was tired. "It never is." But even with David's reassurance, the sense of being watched grew sharper. Jasmine started to notice a pattern: meetings that felt tense, colleagues who paused when she entered a room, emails with questions that seemed more loaded than usual. Archer and Smith was a ship in stormy waters, and everyone was trying to guess who'd be left standing when the waves settled. One afternoon, she found herself alone in the elevator with Robert Allen. The older man was usually reserved, his opinions carefully rationed. Today, though, he surprised her. "Bradley's playing a dangerous game," Robert said quietly. "He doesn't see what's coming." Jasmine met his gaze. "And what is coming?" Robert's smile was cryptic. "You'll see soon enough. Just keep your head high." The elevator doors opened and Robert stepped out, leaving Jasmine with more questions than answers. That night, as the city pulsed outside her window, Jasmine worked late, reviewing budgets and timelines. Around 9, her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A low, confident voice replied. "Ms. Miller, this is Robert Allen. Sorry to call so late." Jasmine straightened in her chair. "No problem, Robert. What can I do for you?" He spoke in measured tones. "You may want to be prepared for some movement at the next board meeting. There are changes coming, and certain people are about to discover that the company's future is no longer up for debate." Jasmine felt a chill, excitement, and fear mingling in her chest. "Thank you for the warning." Robert's voice softened. "You've earned this, Jasmine. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." After he hung up, Jasmine sat in silence, staring at the city lights. For the first time, she sensed the scale of what was happening, the old power structures shifting beneath her feet, the truth about who controlled Archer and Smith surfacing at last. The days leading up to the board meeting were tense. Bradley paced the halls, more irritable than ever. Rumors multiplied. Megan Riley kept her distance, her anxiety barely concealed. Lauren from HR sent Jasmine quiet, supportive texts. Don't let them get to you. Even Cameron Walker seemed subdued, avoiding the usual office gossip. The day of the board meeting arrived with a heavy, electric calm. The executive floor was quieter than usual. People spoke in hushed voices. Jasmine dressed with care. A charcoal suit, simple jewelry, a notebook packed with figures and talking points. She arrived early, taking a seat at the boardroom table. The air was thick with anticipation as the directors filed in. David Carter took his place at the head, Robert Allen to his right. Bradley entered last, jaw set, eyes hard. The meeting began with formalities, then turned quickly to business. Jasmine presented her quarterly update, running through the numbers with practiced ease. She sensed the board was not really listening. They were watching Bradley. At last, Robert Allen cleared his throat. Before we move on, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room. A hush fell. Bradley straightened, ready for a fight. Robert continued. There have been concerns about recent leadership changes, concerns that have been brought to the board's attention by several parties. We've reviewed the data, the results, and the impact on staff, and we've reached a decision. Jasmine held her breath. Bradley's eyes darted between board members, searching for allies. David Carter spoke next, voice calm but unyielding. Jasmine's project has not only exceeded expectations, but it's also set a new standard for innovation and accountability. We need more of that, not less. Robert nodded, adding, and with that in mind, we're formalizing her promotion. Effective immediately, Jasmine Miller is being named Senior Vice President of Business Development. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Bradley's face turned white, his fists clenched on the table. David looked directly at Jasmine. You've earned this. Congratulations. Jasmine nodded, heart pounding, her expression composed. She thanked them, her voice steady, refusing to give Bradley the satisfaction of seeing her gloat. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Project updates, future strategies, routine votes. Bradley spoke little, retreating further with each agenda item. Afterward, board members offered Jasmine quiet congratulations. Some were genuine, others more reserved, but all understood the new hierarchy. Lauren Mitchell found her by the coffee machine, offering a quick, heartfelt hug. You did it, she whispered. But not everyone was happy. As the news spread, Jasmine overheard the mutters, resentment, envy, suspicion. She kept her head high, moving through the office with calm purpose. Bradley, meanwhile, was nowhere to be seen for the rest of the day. Later, as the building emptied, Sean stopped by Jasmine's office. You okay? He asked, eyes searching hers. She smiled, exhausted but triumphant. Better than ever. But I know this isn't the end, Sean grinned. It's a new chapter. And for what it's worth, I've got your back. So does half the company. Mary arrived moments later, arms full of cupcakes. To celebrate, she declared, passing them around. They sat together, laughing for the first time in days. Jasmine allowed herself a rare moment of joy. She'd done more than survive. She'd won. That night, as Jasmine left the building, she looked up at the Archer and Smith logo illuminated against the sky. She thought about the people who'd doubted her, the friends who'd stood by her, and the power that comes not from a title, but from refusing to disappear. She didn't know what battles tomorrow would bring. But tonight, for the first time, she allowed herself to feel hope. Something big was still coming, a final reckoning, a truth no one could hide. But she was ready. She'd always been ready. And as the city lights flickered in the distance, Jasmine walked into the night certain of one thing. The old guard at Archer and Smith was finally truly on notice. The spring sun lit up the Archer and Smith Holdings headquarters, casting long beams of gold through its glass walls as the building's most important day of the year began. Inside, there was no mistaking the sense of occasion. Today was the annual general meeting, the event where the year's progress was unveiled, new directions were hinted at, and the company's highest leaders stood before staff, shareholders, and the world. The lobby was alive with energy. Employees, investors, and partners gathered in clusters, eyes bright with curiosity and ambition. Photographers hovered near the marble staircase. Department heads swapped last-minute notes. Even the security guards seemed to stand a little taller. Jasmine Miller entered almost unnoticed, her emerald dress, a contrast against the charcoal suits and navy blazers. She walked past the Archer and Smith founder's portrait, a painting she'd studied 1,000 times as a child, searching for some trace of herself in her grandfather's features. Today, her heart was racing, but her face was calm. Upstairs, the main conference hall was filled with the company's power brokers. At the front, a stage gleamed beneath crystal lights, flanked by massive screens set to broadcast every word to satellite locations and online viewers. The board sat along one side. David Carter, the CEO, presided at the podium. Next to him was the formidable chairperson, Evelyn Archer, Jasmine's mother, her presence serene and commanding. To Evelyn's right, Brandon Smith, co-chairman and scion of the Smith family, adjusted his tie, a quiet smile playing on his lips. But outside the family, few knew the true web of relationships in the room. No one, neither board nor staff nor shareholders, knew what was about to unfold. The meeting opened with applause. David Carter, polished and confident, welcomed the attendees. He ran through the year's highlights, record profits, new partnerships, Jasmine's now famous mid-market expansion, innovation awards, and a culture slowly shifting for the better. He made a point of calling out the incredible work from new leaders, including Jasmine by name. Bradley, in the front row, hid a scowl behind polite applause. Robert Allen, the senior board member, watched everything with a careful, neutral gaze. As David wrapped up, his tone shifted to anticipation. We are a company built on legacy and on leadership. We continue to evolve. And today, I am honored to hand the stage to our chairperson, Evelyn Archer, for a special announcement about the future of Archer and Smith Holdings. The room stilled. Evelyn stood, her navy suit perfectly tailored, her every movement poised. She let the quiet settle before she spoke. "Thank you, David," she began, her voice resonant and warm. "It has been a year of challenge, change, and great achievement. Archer and Smith has always been a family company at heart, one built by my father, Zach Archer, and grown with the help of my cousin Brandon Smith, who has served as co-chairman for decades." She paused, looking at Brandon, who nodded with a smile that was both proud and faintly sad. "For years," Evelyn continued, "there has been speculation about the future leadership of our company. Brandon, who has given his life to Archer and Smith, has no children to continue his legacy. The question of succession has lingered for too long." There were ripples of surprise, people glancing at each other, at Brandon, who remained serene. In the front row, David Carter frowned, clearly caught off guard. Robert Allen leaned forward, eyebrows raised. Evelyn's eyes swept the room, resting on Jasmine, who sat stone still, barely breathing. "It is my privilege to announce today, for the first time publicly, that the next heir to the Archer and Smith legacy is present in this room." She turned, gesturing for Jasmine to rise. "Many of you know her as one of our most dynamic executives. Few know she is my daughter and the granddaughter of our founder. I am proud to introduce the next owner and future chairperson of Archer and Smith Holdings, Jasmine Miller." The room exploded into whispers, gasps, and stunned silence. Jasmine stood, her heart hammering so hard she felt the world vibrate beneath her feet. Flashbulbs popped. Even the board members, seasoned veterans, looked shell-shocked. Evelyn smiled, eyes shining. Jasmine has chosen to work here as any employee would, learning every level, earning her place not by name, but by her merit. Her father, Dr. Charles Miller of MIT, and I could not be more proud. With Brandon's blessing and my full confidence, she will become the sole heir and, in due time, chairperson of this company. Brandon Smith stood and took Jasmine's hand. "It's time for a new chapter," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "The Archer and Smith families have always believed in building, not just inheriting. Jasmine is the best of both families and the future we've all been waiting for. Jasmine moved to the stage, nerves turning to strength as she faced the crowd. David Carter rose to shake her hand, speechless. Robert Allen managed a stunned congratulations. On stage, Evelyn turned to her daughter. This is not just about succession, it's about trust, vision, and the willingness to change. Jasmine, you have earned your place here. Jasmine stepped to the microphone, every eye on her. I am deeply honored, she said, her voice steady. Not just by the trust of my family, but by the journey I've shared with all of you, colleagues, mentors, friends. I chose to come here as an ordinary employee to learn this company's true strengths and challenges. My story is the story of so many at Archer & Smith, working hard, often unseen, but always believing in the possible. She locked eyes with Bradley and the crowd, then with David, Robert, and her mother. I promise to lead with transparency, innovation, and fairness. No one's ideas will be dismissed because of who they are. We will judge each other by what we bring to the table, not by history, rumor, or assumptions. The applause was slow at first, then swelled to a standing ovation. Mary Lewis, tears in her eyes, clapped wildly. Sean Jackson grinned, cheering. Even longtime skeptics found themselves swept up in the moment. Evelyn embraced Jasmine on stage, then Brandon, who nodded with pride. Go on, he whispered. This is your story now. Reporters surged forward for statements. Employees buzzed with the news, some already speculating about what the new era would mean. Bradley, pale and silent, tried to compose himself as his influence crumbled. David Carter turned to Robert, shaking his head in disbelief, but a smile slowly blooming. After the official program, a reception followed. Jasmine was surrounded by well-wishers, questions, congratulations, and hugs. Old colleagues came to apologize for underestimating her. Mary pressed a cupcake into Jasmine's hand, whispering, "Told you you'd change everything." Evelyn and Brandon watched from the side, arms linked, their faces a portrait of generational pride. As the crowd thinned, Jasmine found herself alone at last. She walked to the founder's portrait, standing quietly for a moment. Her mother joined her, voice soft. "He'd be proud of you, Jasmine." Jasmine smiled, eyes shining. "I hope so. I did it my way, our way." Later that night, as the city glittered beneath her office window, Jasmine reflected on all it had taken to reach this moment. The trials, the dismissals, the victories earned in silence. She thought of her father's advice, her mother's strength, and the possibilities she now held for everyone watching. And as she prepared for the new era she would shape, Jasmine knew her journey, her real story, was only just beginning.